Hi guys, Andy here. It's that time of year again where HTC have released their new flagship device. Samsung obviously have released their new flagship device. Initially I've picked myself up an HTC One second hand. So today I'll just show you how I've got on with it over the last week. So it certainly looks a nice device. It's very well designed, it's very sleek looking. It looks a little bit like the iPhone 5 for my liking, sort of the top and bottom strip bars almost. Obviously this is kind of the white or silver version. It certainly feels solid, so those that hate the Samsung plasticky feel, you should be right at home with the HTC One. Let's take a look around the device. So front facing camera at the front, 2.1 megapixel, the various sensors over on the other side of the large speaker there. Another speaker at the bottom. You notice just two capacitive buttons, so a back and a home. A little bit odd to me. I don't like it, not having the menu button. There are some custom kernels that turn the HTC button into a menu, which I have tried and they seem to work quite well. On the right hand side, the volume buttons, very flush. Again, I don't particularly like it. You almost can't feel the difference. There are times I've been thinking, am I on the volume, am I not? A little bit odd. Likewise, the power button, you see how flush that is. There's times I'm pressing about, I don't know if I'm pressing it or not, and then finally, finally I get it. Headphone jack at the top, no problem with that. Nothing at all. Well, sorry, I say nothing at all. That's the SIM card slot. You need the old HTC Proda, or maybe a drawing pin, or something to get it out. Microphone and the usual micro SD at the bottom. On the back, the Beats Audio branding. It does look nice, slick, smooth, sort of white stripes coming through there. The 4 megapixel camera and the LED flash, and the mic for the noise cancelling. So it is a very nice looking device. It's 143 grams, which is, it's not heavy, it's not light. To me it feels about right. If you're coming from a smaller phone, yeah, it probably will feel quite heavy, but for most of you sort of current day Android users, that's a fairly normal weight. So the actual hardware, the screen itself is a 1080p screen, so it's 1920 by 1080 pixels. I mean, that's as many pixels as most people have in their monitors on their computers, which is kind of crazy on a 4.7 inch screen. It's Super LCD 3, and sorry, I should have mentioned it's 469 pixels per inch, that is. So, I mean, it does look, I think, pretty amazing. The viewing angles are good. I don't know how well it's going to show on the video, but that's still really very clear. Or even, for even the tightest angles, look at that. It's an amazing screen. It's all protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 2. As I've mentioned, there are two front-facing speakers, give it very good sound. It's got a 1.7 GHz Crate 300 CPU and an Adreno 320 GPU, as well as 2 GB of RAM, which you kind of would expect this day and age. I say this day and age, since the LTE version of the S3, I suppose, it's kind of, they set a new benchmark. It has got NFC. I think it's quite high in the back near the camera from what I've been my experience. It is LTE compatible. It is DC HSDPA compatible, but only certain ROMs seem to show it. I'm just going to real quickly go into mobile data and go into network mode. So I've got it here like LTE, but other ROMs, if I flash a custom ROM, I only get these top two. With this ROM, or an earlier version of this I should say, I clocked 18 megabits per second in my house. That's the highest I've had ever. I think 11 had been the previous best. So definitely has the ability to clock up some good speeds. It's all being powered by a 2300 mAh battery, which I'll talk a little bit about in a while. Now, one of the big factors for me and many others is a camera in a phone. The one thing that the One X really impressed me with was the camera. I did feel it had possibly had the slight edge over the S3, although it was very close. So I was quite excited to see what they would produce in the HTC One. Now I have to say, there we go. I'm a little disappointed in some of the pictures. Some of them look fine. That looks great. Slightly blurry perhaps. I basically look, this is an HDR picture. That really worries me. What's going on in the sky there and there? But it's separated the sky. An HDR, if you don't know, it works by taking 3 or 4 different photos at different exposures, and then taking the best exposure for the different part of the picture. So normally the sky is going to be quite bright, so it uses one where it's a bit darker, or from the image that's darker. And the foreground is normally darker, so it uses the image where it's a bit bright, and it patches them together. And in the sky it looks like it's taken from a darker and a lighter and put them together, just make quite a mess. Now that, I mean, the sky looks fantastic in that one, but when you zoom in on some of the bits, it doesn't seem all that well in focus. I'm not sure what it was focusing on. Maybe I think it's perhaps focusing off into the distance. But I mean, that picture is perfectly acceptable. That looks pretty good close up, nothing wrong with that. Again, that looks pretty good. So generally they're pretty good. Let's just come back to some of these ones where I took in where it was a bit darker. That was a panoramic, it's fine. So that was the third attempt, and finally it seemed to have focused on it. I got 2 very blurry pictures before that. And here's the worrying example. Now, okay, granted I got my finger a little bit in the way at the bottom there, but I don't know if you can see how poorly that focused. It just doesn't try and focus when that was no lights on in the room at all. But so that was finally after I sort of tapping the screen a few times, picture, tap, picture. Finally I got one where I think it focused reasonable. I mean, it's still not that crisp, but that looks more like a fairly normal picture. Basically, what I expect to happen when you hit the shutter, the light comes on and then it focuses while it's got the light, and then it takes the picture. But it doesn't seem to do that. It seems to try and focus beforehand when it's dark. The light comes on, it doesn't change anything, then it takes the picture. Very frustrating. Reasonable shot. That was not HDR or anything. Literally just pointed out the window and took the snap. And then with a bit of testing with HTC Zoe, I've still not totally got the hang of Zoe, but effectively, let's come back a second. That button there means that Zoe's on or Zoe's off. So back onto normal mode, into Zoe mode. Now in Zoe mode, if I hit to take a picture, it basically takes 3 seconds. Every time it takes 3 seconds. So I go back into the album, I get my 3 seconds. But at the same time, I think, yeah, so there's my actual photo. So when I hit it, in theory it's taken maybe a second or a little bit beforehand, and it takes a little bit afterwards. You can do various edits, retouch frames, effects. Now actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to, because this, come back into album, if I can find the right one of the street. It's probably a quicker way for me to get there than this, but sorry about that. Now this is quite impressive though. So this was HTC Zoe. The car basically driving on by. It started a couple of seconds before. But that was HTC Zoe taking a photo of the street. Now, this bit I like. That car was in every bit of the photo. Just gotta remember which. I think it's retouch, object removal. Boom, the car's gone. Lovely. I can say, actually, no, I want the car in it. Boom, and it puts it back. No, I don't want the car in it. Zoop, and it's gone. And so it saves the image. And there it is. The car is not visible at any point on the road. Everything else still looks pretty crisp. Even the bit of road where the car was, still pretty crisp. You know, I think that's quite impressive. Some of the examples they give on some of the videos you can see they'll have people stood in front of a thing in Philadelphia, I think it is, and there's like 3 different people all walking around it, and the people in the photo try and stay still. It takes the 3 seconds, and it basically can, I guess what it does is, or that road is visible at some point in all of those 3 seconds, so all it's doing is, if the car's in that bit, it goes to a point where the car wasn't in it and says, right, I'm taking that, and superimposes it over where the car was, lines it all up, and everything, off you go. So that one's actually quite a simple one. The one they give the example of with 3 different people, someone mopping the floor, someone cycling by, and it manages to take all those 3 people out. Really quite impressive. Whether or not that's been touched up a little bit, I don't know, but that's a good example of how well it can work. Now you can also share, that's what the images of the little Androidy fellow were. Oh, just before that. Now, share. HTC Share, yeah, check it out. So we've got just the one image, but I can add other ones to it. Android, upload now. Oh yeah, it's doing it. Sorry, because when I tried to do this earlier this morning, it just kept telling me something else was using HTC Share. So up it goes, and in theory it's just nice presentation, nice ways of sharing sort of albums, collections of photos, collections of videos. Bear with me while it finishes uploading. I'm not entirely sure how I then view it, having said that. So we're available for 180 days. So I'm not entirely sure. Right, so that's when I get my link. Okay, because I'd looked at a couple of other people's and not figured out how. And this is what you would see on your computer as well. I don't know if we get the video bit of it. It's just stills in this case. Oh no, because it is videos. But there's also, I think I might have to come all the way back out for this. And again, I haven't played a lot. What am I looking for? Gallery. So I go to my photos. It starts with events. And it basically it just puts together a little show for you basically, which is kind of cool. With cheesy music. So you know, if you've been taking pictures of your kid or your dog or your missus, I think that just loops now. Oh no, it's going to stop. London made. And obviously I can share that somehow. Save it along. You know, that's kind of cool. How easy. I did nothing. It did that all itself. I can't imagine. I'm going to try it tomorrow. I'm going to a bit of an event, but it does look kind of cool generally. It's just as a straight up slideshow now. So I'm not actually entirely sure what I did to make it, put it all with music and stuff, but I don't know. I perhaps should have spent more time trying to understand it before I come to you guys, but there it is. Seems kind of handy if you can figure out. Yeah, I don't want to share it with anyone. Okay, that's gone. So, all in all, camera seems pretty good. I'm really hoping that I've got a faulty unit. I have seen a few people complaining that they can't focus their cameras properly. I've tweeted HTC yesterday, they've not come back to me. So I'm really hoping just that focusing issue is a problem with my phone, and maybe they can swap it for me and everything will be good. Most of the pictures that are taken that are in focus look pretty good. Although comparing it, I'm doing a comparison on my blog. I'll put a link into. I'm not sure it's better than the S3. I'm really not. Different situations, different phone does better. have a look at the link, and you can make your own decisions then. Right, we're going to take a look or a listen to the speakers. To be honest, best speakers I've heard on a mobile phone. Really very good. So here we go. I'll start off with the podcast because, to be fair, these are what sound the best. Speech, that is.
In the News Views Path says it's adding up to 1 million users per week, so that's exponential growth. But at what cost? Veronica, have you noticed any of this? I know you're a Path user as well.
Yeah, I've noticed a pretty big uptick in people on Facebook signing up as well. I find it interesting, though, that they use it.
I don't know how well this comes across in a video uploaded on YouTube, but it sounds very well rounded. It doesn't really sound tinny. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's not a lot of bass. I don't think you can get a lot of bass out of speakers that size, but it just sounds fuller than most phones. A lot of phones would be a little bit tinny, a little bit high pitched. But these,
a wide-reaching approach to getting new people to sign up, because it is supposed to be such an exclusive.
It generally sounds as good as a small speaker like this type. A little Android pal over here. It generally sounds as good as one of those. Now we'll try a little bit of music and hope that nobody complains and YouTube don't bring it down.
Yeah, I'm out at Brooklyn. Now I'm down in Tribeca, right next to the Never.
So again, obviously you're not going to get a huge amount of bass, but it does sound very clear, well-rounded.
Your gift keeps on giving. What is this?
Like I said, I don't play too much. I'll probably get taken down off YouTube or something along those lines. So it does. I mean, they are the best speakers I've heard on a phone. Really, very good. There's not a great deal more I can say. Hopefully, you could hear that on the video. So the software on the HTC One, it's running Android 4.1.2. I believe the most recent version of Android is 4.2.2. So it's not up to date in that respect, but it's up to date enough that it's still, obviously a very good version of Android. This particular one is on an O2 ROM. 1.29.206.11, HTC Sense version 5.0. That's what you need to know from there, really. And it's good enough. It's reasonably slick. The usual kind of HTC widgets. What they have brought in is this new sort of news aggregator for you, which a lot of people use as their main screen, I suppose. You can log into different apps like, oh, where's my Facebook gone? Facebook should be logged into them. Oh, it's because I've frozen it, I think. Or you can tell it different news providers, or you can just tell it different categories and subjects, basically. It then just builds a news feed for you. Obviously you've got time weather at the very top. I quite like the sort of effect of the tiles sliding away there, but at the same time I don't like how it has to be one screen or another. You can't just sort of slide it halfway. But anyway, tap them on, you get the sort of the full article, and because you've been quite specific, it should be, suited to your needs, and it is quite nice. And then you can have that as just one of the screens. Let me think, there we go. You can have up to 5 screens, which I don't know, I'd like a few more, because not all widgets are resizable. So this one, for example, I can't change the size of it. Some of them, the people one, I can adjust to whatever size I want. That's fine, so you can fit other things in. But this one I can't. But I can't have another screen. Usual deal, just drag and drop your widgets. You can change which screen is going to be your home screen. I forget how. There we go. So you can drag it to set us home. You can move, I think. Oh no, maybe you can't actually. Maybe that's what I was trying to do one time, yeah. So that's a bit weird. I don't think you can change the order. It seems a fairly standard thing to want to be able to do. The keyboard's pretty good. I have replaced it with swipe almost straight away. There are a few annoyances. This thing, power saver off. Yeah, you are off. I don't want you at all. Why are you there? There is a workaround. Let me think. Into applications. There it is, apps, sorry. Now I slide all the way down to power. I'm going to force stop. See, there is a bit there show notification. You should be able to unselect that. I don't want notifications about power. And now it's gone. I do still have the ability to look at power in the menu, in the options. It's still not there. So it does stay until I reboot, then it'll come back and I've got to go and force stop again. Now these toggles in here, I've added myself, I forget what the app's called, and it also gives the battery percentage in the corner. So normally they're not there. You literally just, the only way to turn your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on is to go into the settings, or if you drop a, obviously if you drop a widget, a power control widget. So I was a bit surprised because I remember going way back, HTC, they used to have two different sides, just double check this, yeah, two different sides where you switch between your toggles and your notifications. So quite a while they've taken that away, because I find it very handy, you know, if you're in maps and realise you've not got GPS on, you don't want to have to come all the way back out or into settings or whatever. So that's a bit of a disappointment. Obviously HTC Zoe is an addition to the software. If you get the hang of it, I think it could be quite a powerful little tool. The ROM scene doesn't seem too bad. The HTC are clearly making efforts to, oh yeah, that's a bit annoying, I can't press back. I couldn't actually find how to remove, actually maybe that one. I had internet was in there before and I wanted Chrome, but if I dropped on uninstall, nothing happened. It stayed there. I had Chrome and they both appeared in a folder, so you can have folders along the bottom. Well, I've totally forgot what I was saying. So yeah, the ROM scene, HTC are making efforts to sort of keep developers happy. I've seen that Kush's had a meeting with them and talked through different things. They've explained about what S off and S on actually means. So at the minute you can't get S off, which is kind of a security thing which allows you access to the radio ROM and a few other bits and pieces. But a lot of developers said, well, that's fine, I don't really need access to that area, as long as we can unlock the bootloader, which I have done. You can go to htcdev.com or something along those lines. You put in your IEM number and they email you a file that you flash on the phone. It unlocks the bootloader. That means you can then flash ROMs. So they are they're happy enough for people to flash ROMs. We'll see what happens if I try and send this back thinking that the camera might be faulty. I mean, it might not be. Maybe it's just not very good in the dark. Anyway, yeah, there we go. That's generally the software. Yeah, it's not a problem. Is it better than the Samsung's version? I don't know. They're neither that great, but obviously you can install your own launchers and hide away a lot of the sort of Sense stuff and make it look a lot like stock Android anyway. So finally, just some comments on the battery, I suppose. I found it to be very good. I mean, I've been using it quite a lot this morning. I'm down to 60% after 4.5 hours, but then what is my screen on time? Oh, why isn't the screen visible? Oh, these are just apps. Sorry. Can't really see so much. I do quite like how they've put times in. So I've been using this since 6 AM. The screen's been on pretty constant, well not pretty constant, but a lot since 8:30. I'm surprised it's down to 60. It may be because I've updated the ROM, it may be this one's not quite as efficient as the last one, but I'd been to work and come home and I'd only used about 25% in 8 to 9 hours, and basically all the way from the morning, from sort of 6:30 till the evening at 11 o'clock, and I was still only on 50%. So I'm surprised today, but I've been running benchmarks and stuff on the phone, so it has been stressed pretty heavily to be at 60. But all in all, I mean, like I said, I got through a whole day, a 15-hour day with half the battery left. So the battery seems pretty good. One of the advantages of them making it, because it's not removable, unfortunately, nothing's you can't get into the back there. but it does mean they've been able to cram in just over a little bit of battery space that they possibly can. That's the advantage of having the non-removable battery. So 2300 milliamp hours is pretty big, and it does do a very good job. So it just remains really to show you some benchmarks. Let's run Antutu. I've only just installed this earlier, so whatever. Start test. This test may take several minutes. Now, as usual, I won't make you sit through watching the whole thing. We'll cut back near the end of it. Everything looking pretty smooth thus far. That's holding on a very steady 62 frames per second there. Oh, I've not seen this one before. That's still clocking about 30 frames per second on what looks like, I say triangles 25,000. That's a lot of triangles. And the lighting effects and all sorts. Looks pretty smooth to me. There it is, 23,485. Not sure what all these comment bits are for. CPU and GPU. Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest, I've not really got anything to compare that against at the moment, but let me know in the comments, I suppose, what your phone does at the moment. So then we have 3D Mark. Now, I'm not going to bother running this through, I've run it already. There is a video of 3D Mark if you want to see it, but I can tell you on the regular one I scored 11,515, and on the extreme version I scored 6,760. That does actually place me slightly above the averages. There's the averages, 10,485 and 6,332. I couldn't tell you why that is. I haven't particularly, I mean, I've frozen a few apps but not much. It's generally a stock ROM. But there you go, so again you can compare that to perhaps what your phone scores. So that's benchmarking. So all in all, pretty amazing camera, I would say. It's a very nice design, although I didn't mention the curved back means that if you like to type like me on a desk, it rocks back and forth a little bit, but small point. Design, it's a very nice looking phone. It feels very good. The build quality, HTC really stepped up. If you go back to the Desire HD and the Desire Z, I thought the build quality was really quite poor, but ever since then, the One X, the One, they've really stepped the game up. The speakers are amazing. I do listen most mornings and sometimes in the evenings, listen to podcasts from my phone. The quality from the HTC One, really good. For example, normally when I boil a kettle in the morning to make my coffee, I can't hear the podcast unless I connect to an external speaker. This one I can hear it. I can even hear it when I go around into the next room. I can still hear the podcast. So the speakers are that good. The screen's fantastic. The speed of it, it's all very slick and very smooth. I've not really noticed any lag at all. The only thing that concerns me is this camera. I do like to take photos, and just the fact that it really struggles to focus in low light concerns me. Now I'm hoping that's just an issue with my device. Hopefully I can get it changed and everything will be good. The HDR photo that I showed you, that's a bit of a worry as well. So on the one hand I do wonder if the S3's camera is better, and it does make me think, oh, maybe I should check out the S4. But then if the S4 can't match these speakers, which I wouldn't imagine it can, then I'm really torn. It's quite annoying. We get to that point where the devices are so good that you kind of, it makes it very hard to choose between one and the other, because you are literally just on looking at some of the very fine detail of sort of any issues that each might have. So all in all though, pretty amazing device. I think you'll find most people that own one very happy with them. I've seen a lot of positive feedback. So at the moment would be my recommended device. Someone's coming new to Android or just looking for an upgrade, definitely you want to be looking at the HTC One.